Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 says, Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not on thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Thank you for joining me today on Paint a Beautiful Picture. Today, we are going to talk about what true faith really is, how we rely upon God. Unapologetically, I told you that I was a Christian. I had a conversation with someone lately that compels me to share this with you. Okay. It's a neighbor of mine, and he was raised by some really fascinating people. His grandmother was a Mormon and one of multiple wives. One of his other grandmothers was a strong Pentecostal, speaking in tongues, rolling on the floor. You know, he'll even say those holy rollers. That's where that name came from. One of his other grandparents, I think it was one of his grandfathers, was an agnostic, wasn't really sure if there actually was a God or not really. And then he had somebody somewhere in his family that was a Buddhist monk and really was a strong proponent of Buddhism. So this is what he said to me. He goes, "So I don't really take my kids to church anywhere. I don't really talk to my kids about God at all. You know, I figure they'll either find God or they won't. It doesn't really matter to me." You might say, "Okay, that works. Like, what's wrong with that?" Okay, I have to ask you this question. If there's no God, I mean, if there's legitimately, like for real, we die and there's really no God. But I followed my belief system in God and lived a moral life and behaved in a certain way in light of what I believe. What did I lose? I didn't lose anything. But if you live your life like there isn't a God, you just do whatever you want to do, sleep with whoever you want to sleep with, get drunk whenever you feel like it, spend your money on drugs, just like live your life, do what you feel. Like there doesn't really, there's no God, and it's not going to matter. And you die, and you find out there is a God, but you didn't know him. What did it cost you? Pretty much everything, and eternity too. Okay, that's why we're going to talk about this. So, do you have a responsibility to teach faith to your child? Can you even teach faith to someone? Those are really good questions. Okay. You actually cannot teach faith to a person, it's impossible. But there's an interesting idea in the Bible that says faith comes from God, and every single person is given a seed, a measure of faith. And so it's kind of like every other seed. If you tend it and take care of it and water it and fertilize it, it's going to grow. If you don't do a single thing, it's very likely going to die or certainly not live a healthy life. So you can at least do the things that will give your child's faith a chance to grow. You know that sometimes I used to take my kids camping. We'd sleep outdoors in a sleeping bag under the stars. And we would talk about that a God with a great creative mind and spirit and a lot of enthusiasm for beauty would put the stars into space in a specific order so that in the state of Wisconsin, at least, or in the northern hemisphere on our side of it in the west, you will see Orion arise in the southeastern sky at the end of September or the beginning of October. It's not there all year long, but that's how you know that fall is coming. You will see the Big Dipper. You will see the North Star. You will see the bear. You'll just see so many things. And you know what? They're always in the same place. They don't just suddenly disappear. There is such an orderliness there. And that's why it says in Romans that even the heavens declare that there is a God. People can see evidence of him because of what he's made. So I'm going to talk to you as though you have some faith in your life. And we'll say that that's a person who follows Jesus, a Christian, a Christ follower. But if that's not your belief system, and I respect that, God allows us to choose. I'm certainly not bigger than him. I'm going to let you make that choice yourself. But I will say to you that it does actually matter. So I'm coming from that premise. Okay. So you're having this discussion with your child about what faith is, a belief in a very big, massive, creative God who loves us and is vitally interested in our lives. And you tell them that that's who you are and that's what you believe. And then every time something goes wrong, you freak right out of your mind, like, "Oh, I can't believe it! A tree fell on the house, and we have this big hole in the roof, and what are we gonna do? And I don't have any money in savings, and insurance isn't gonna cover all this. And what about the deductible? And how could this happen to me?" Yeah, like if you're always doing the big freak, do you really trust God? Do you really rely on a God who is big and strong and powerful and who knows everything? Like, God is in heaven biting his nails because he's in shock that this tree fell on your house? No. And if you believe in a God who is big and strong and powerful and loves you and has good plans for you, why are you freaking all out? Like, why don't you get on your knees and say, "Oh God, thank you for protecting my family. No one got hurt. Thank you that I do have homeowners insurance. We are going to get this taken care of." Now, I don't know how you're going to give me the rest of the money. I mean, my kid was just sick last month and I spent everything I had, and I don't have any money to pay the deductible, but I know you. I rely on you. You are trustworthy. I'm going to depend on you to take care of this for me. You said, trust in you with all my heart. Don't lean on my own understanding, like try to find out a way this is going to happen. And you're going to direct my path. You are going to take care of this. I know this. You're a really good dad. So, okay. Wow. Now you just showed your child in vivid living color that you actually trust God, that you have an active faith, that you can rely on Him. So recently I explained this to someone. I used to say to a person that I know incredibly well, I need you to quit talking now. Because they would say all this stuff to me. Then they would do like the polar opposite. And I was like, you need to quit talking to me because I don't believe anything coming out of your mouth because your life is so loud. That's what I believe. Because that's what I see and that's what I know. What you're living. That's your child's story, though they might not have the language to say it to you. If it's a whole lot of this and no living out loud, I hate to tell you, they're not buying it. Okay? So you need to have an active faith, a true faith. Let me tell you something interesting. In Ephesians, it talks about putting on the full armor of God every single day because we're in a fight for our life. Okay? And he said to put on all this armor and take the shield of faith. Do you know what a shield did? A shield covered a person's major organs, their heart, their stomach, their chest, their mid body. Faith is our shield in life. It's going to protect the major organs, the major parts of us. Okay? So, this is what I ask God pretty much on a daily basis. Oh God, increase my faith, make it bigger. So I trust you more and more and more for big, incredible things. Strengthen my faith. As like every other thing, how does it get stronger? By exercising it. So you exercise your muscles, they kind of get broken down, they ache, and then they rebuild and they're even stronger than they were before. That takes challenges to our faith. That takes troubles sometimes and trials and difficulties. And we trust God and our faith gets bigger. Strengthen my faith. Deepen my faith. In recognition that if I'm going to have this strong, flourishing tree over my life that's going to protect me, it's going to need some really deep, secure roots. Deepen my faith. And give me faith everlasting. Do you know that the strongest, most honest Christian at times will have things that truly challenge their faith and make them doubt have some strong questions or reservations and go, yeah. That is a normal process of faith. But, oh God, preserve my faith all the way unto life everlasting. Like, don't let my faith die at all. Okay? True faith. You could have faith in a human being, they're going to fail you. Humans mess up. Okay? I don't care how strong and amazing and how much character they have. Sooner or later, eventually, they're going to disappoint you because they're a human. God, on the other hand, he doesn't. It isn't that God does things, it's that our perception about God makes us attribute things to him that oftentimes aren't the truth. So, how do we know God, who he really is, and how do we have that relationship with him? Because he is a person, he is a being. It's very fascinating. It said that Jesus took on flesh, got a body, grew up inside of a mom's womb like the rest of us, developed a body, was born as a baby, grew up as a little kid and as an awkward middle school kid. And yeah, he was really here so that we could understand God. Pretty cool. God wanted us to understand him and know him so much, he literally became quite a bit like us so that we would understand who he was and what he looked like. And then, because of God's amazing love for us and the human problem that we have where we're so prone to do it wrong, some people would say that was sin, and I would agree. Because we can't handle that. There's nothing we can do about changing it. He took care of it, which means Jesus allowed himself to be hung up on a cross, a really shameful, pitiful, painful death, and took my sin into himself and your sin and carried it and held on to it there so that he could pay the price, because the price for sin is death. And he paid that price so that we could have eternal life. This is what I always tell people, especially in the Muslim culture. I shared this with a few women. I said, here's the amazing thing about it. No one killed him. He said this in John. He laid down his life. And because he was the one who laid it down, he could pick it up again. That's how strong he is. Strong enough to put it down and take it back. And he did take it back. And he came out of the grave. Well over 500 people saw him on one day. If like two dudes saw him and said they thought they did, you could say they saw a ghost. 500 people? Yeah, that's pretty for real. 500 people saw him on one day. He came back. And oh my goodness, look at the dates on your calendar. In most places in the world is dated from before he came and after he came. He's most assuredly the most significant person in all of history, and there's a reason for that. Do you know, if he's more powerful than death and he's more powerful than the grave, I promise you he's more powerful than your sin. Okay? So if you will ask him to forgive you for the things that you've done wrong, tell him that you don't really have a lot of faith, but you have a teensy bit, and you want to have a relationship with him, and you want to believe him, and you want to understand him. Ask him. He's listening, I promise you. Because as we live out a true faith, it continues to impact our children and the generations to follow. I am really happy to say to you that my sons have seen me grow from an impatient person to a person of pretty significant patience. They have seen me grow from a very angry person to a person who has control over my temper. They saw me go from a young, foolish, immature, inexperienced human, believe me about this, to a person who is gracious and graceful, for which I can only thank God. And I'm so glad that all through my life, that faith has had an impact on my sons. When you have true faith. You really rely on God, and you learn more and more to rely on God. It will impact your children, and it will impact your children's children and generations to come. Trust in the Lord with all of your heart, and do not rely upon your own understanding of things. In everything that you do, go to Him, acknowledge Him. He will show you the path that you should walk on. Thank you so much for being with me today. You may find additional information on our paintabeautifulpicture.com website. Additionally, you may watch me on Rumble, and you may also listen to a podcast on Buzzsprout or Spreaker, all under the name Paint a Beautiful Picture. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. You may subscribe, and if you are interested in receiving notifications, please hit the notifications button.